Warning, there is a war on for our children, and it's happening online, in our own homes, at our kitchen tables, in bedrooms, at school, and so many more places in society. Remember, wherever the kids are, so are the predators. So today we will be having a discussion. It may be uncomfortable for you, but it's today's reality. What are we going to do about all of this? We are going to face all of this head on. We're going to speak truth, always reality, and the harms of social media and things surrounding our youth in society. So buckle up. And perhaps, you've heard about the youth mental health crisis. It's been well documented. But how many are really speaking about it? And what are we doing about it? Today, we are very lucky, and it's such an honor to have Erich Mische join the Warriors. He is the CEO of SAVE, and that stands for Suicide Awareness Voices of Education. We are going to discuss safeguarding mental health. Remember, everybody, 988 is the three-digit code if you or a loved one are facing a crisis and maybe you just need some information. Call. Keep this resource handy at all times. We recommend that at the Warriors. Erich and I are also going to discuss the new initiative sweeping the country, Kids, KIDS. Keep It Digitally Safe campaign that the Warriors are so proud to be a part of. And remember, all of this advocacy is bipartisan and critical and crucial to raising awareness about safety online for our precious kids. So everyone can get on board. You have no exclusive. It's inclusive. It's a safe space. And we want all of you to join us and always share on all of your social media platforms. Please follow two websites, save.org and also keepitdigitallysafe.org. All of this information will be in the body of the video. So everybody sit back, Warriors, relax, as we welcome Erich Mische to the Warriors. Welcome, Erich.
Lynn, good morning. It's great to be with you today.
Well, I thank you because I know you're a few hours behind me in New York City, but this information, I'm so incredibly happy and honored to share your voice. It's a great way to start the week. I'm gonna put it that way, on positive news, positive information, and take actions. Before we start, Erich, I want to ask you, tell us a little bit about Erich, whatever you want about yourself. It could be, you're a child, your career, I know it's a kind of a loaded question, but people always like to kind of know some background information.
Yeah, well, no, I appreciate that. Well, I am the married father of two adult kids. My daughter Maisie is actually getting ready to leave back to Milwaukee, where she is a senior at Marquette University. She's going to graduate with a mechanical engineering degree in less than 3 months. So we're excited
Wow.
for her. And a 24-year-old son who is a graduate University of St. Thomas with a history degree, and he's going to be going and getting his master's in education so he can become a teacher. I am the CEO of SAVE, Suicide Awareness Voices of Education. It's a 36-year-old Minnesota-based national nonprofit that focuses on suicide prevention. We do that through what we call our 4 pillars: education and training, lethal means safety, support for suicide loss survivors, and advocacy, which is the space that you and I and so many others are in these days when it comes to the conversation about how do we protect kids while they're online using social media platforms. My background prior to, I've now been in the nonprofit space for about 14 years. Prior to that, I spent about 35 years in local, state, and national government and politics and public policy. And so, as you and I both chatted about very briefly before we started here, change is really tough. And making change, whether it's at a local, a state, or a national level, more and more these days is very challenging. It's very difficult. And it's all the more reason why we need to get others outside of our universe, right? Regular moms and dads and others to speak up and to make sure that they're part of this effort to protect kids, every kid, no matter where they live, whatever country they're in, while they're online.
Yeah, I have so many questions for you, Erich. It's very important. And let's stress again, we want to do the heavy lifting, so to speak, for everybody and give the tools and the resources and the information, the correct information, right? Because we know media, it's all over the place. Traditional media with a lot of these subject matters, I just throw in what I kind of call what we do, Erich, the nuts and bolts, like what's
Mm-hmm.
really happening, as opposed to I get hit up a lot with media, like let's talk about, and I digress here, I admit it, or like let's talk about P. Diddy, or let's talk about Jeffrey Epstein. But no, this is what matters: our kids, our future adults, and our future leaders of America. So everybody, we can't stress enough, everybody getting on board. Now, I want to ask you, Eric, lay out a little bit, give us some bullet points of the landscape facing however you want to phrase it, facing, I really want parents, caregivers. We have a lot of families in America now, grandparents are raising kids. Some
Hmm.
of these points of what they're facing, because I get this pushback, as I mentioned to you earlier, Lynn, that doesn't happen. Lynn, and then I show the studies, because
Yeah.
everything we're based on truth and studies. So give us some of what's going on right now in 2025.
Yeah, well, in order to do that, let's take a quick step backwards. So, prior to 2000, which would have been really the advent of most of these social media platforms, or many of them that we talk about today, prior to 2000, suicide rates among young people were actually going down, which was obviously a very positive development. And then as we saw social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, all of these things become more ubiquitous and really ingrained in our kids' DNAs, we started to see a really disturbing trend, which was these suicide rates started to go up. And as we started digging a little deeper, it's become apparent why that's happening. So there's both the science around social media platforms, and there's also the business behind social media platforms. The science behind social media platforms is the part that addicts our kids. We talk about addiction with alcohol, we talk about addiction with tobacco. What we don't talk about enough is the addiction that comes from the algorithms, right? That are used to build these platforms and ultimately used to addict kids. We wonder what's going on with our kids where they spend all of their time, adults too, on phones and on YouTube. The reason that happens is because there is a science behind it that social media companies, big tech companies, have spent billions of dollars perfecting, which is how do you addict someone so that they continue to use their product nonstop? I used to be a smoker. I smoked for 20 years. By the time I quit, I was up to 4 packs of cigarettes a day. It was virtually impossible to quit, right? Well, the tobacco companies took the science of the chemicals that they were able to create to addict my brain, but not just mine, millions of people all around the world, right? And it wasn't until policymakers finally said, you know what, this is killing people, right? This is killing kids, it's killing adults, that they finally clamped down on it and started putting into place policies and things like that, regulating that industry. So the same type of addictive features that tobacco put in their products are the same type of features big tech uses to addict kids today. The difference is instead of addicting your bloodstream, it's addicting your brain. And there are studies after studies after studies that show adolescent brain development put in front of a computer, put in front of a laptop, put in front of a tablet, right? Physically changes based on the amount of time that you spend in front of these platforms. Then there's the business model of social media. And the business model is the piece that ought to terrify everybody, whether you have kids of your own, you're a grandparent, you're an aunt, you're an uncle, whatever it is. That business model focuses on putting content and features in front of kids that has resulted in sextortion. And that means as kids being going online and having somebody tell them that they're the same age as them and get them to send them a nude picture or a compromising picture. And then after they send that picture, send them another message saying, if you don't send me more, I'm going to tell your parents. So I'm going to show these publicly, right? So that's that sextortion. It's that online version of blackmail, which is sextorting someone based on that image. Then there's sex trafficking, which goes on. Sex trafficking today with social media is the greatest funnel for how people prey on young kids, both boys and girls. And it used to be that, sex trafficking happened all the time. Now it happens exponentially in multipliers that you cannot even conceive because of the easy access to those platforms. You have bullying, you have image problems, right, with eating disorders and things like that. And you also have increases in suicidal ideation and suicide because of the content that's being put in front of kids, but also the net effect of sextortion and sex trafficking and bullying. You and I both have talked to parent after parent after parent who's lost a child to suicide because they've been sextorted, because somebody bullied them. In the old days, I'm old. In the old days, when somebody bullied you at school, once you got inside your house, you were safe. That bullying stopped, right? Today, that bullying goes on 24/7. It's nonstop. And just imagine you're a 12-year-old, a 13-year-old, and you cannot escape that kind of just absolute, overwhelming, constant drumbeat of bullying and threats to your life. And imagine trying to deal with that on your own. And then the last piece that goes on that's really important that people understand is that kids are buying illegal drugs on things like Snapchat. And not just illegal drugs, right? They're buying things like Percocet and things like that. And oftentimes those drugs are being laced with fentanyl. We work very closely with a couple of families whose kids bought illegal drugs on Snapchat. Somebody literally delivered Percocet to their doorstep. Kid goes downstairs, and before they even ingest that pill fully, they're already dead. So the message here is clear. If you don't think these are things are happening and they're not happening to your kid, I got to tell you, you're dead wrong. They're happening to everybody's kids. You may not be aware of it, but it's happening.
I mean, you said a mouthful, Eric, but I want to go back. We are not old, Eric. We are seasoned.
There you go.
we are seasoned, but it's true. We could come home and close a door and it was over,
Yeah.
right? When we were kids and teens, and we could, that was done. Now, this 24 hours. So how are we going to rewire these brains? How are we going to change this? Everything you pointed out is very well documented. We have so many different studies about the brains, about suicide, about the dangerous algorithms, about profit over people, if you want to just break it down to that, profit over dignity, however you want to phrase it. I want to ask you, and I'm very serious about this, if we know all of this, why is it so tough? Why are we allowing this dollar sign, again, to destroy our youth? Because that's the way I look at it, destroying our youth. I can't imagine if this isn't reined in somehow, some way, in a bigger scale, right? We have all these little pieces now, Kids Online Safety Act. We have lots of great groups like you, like the Warriors and others really working hard, a lot of bipartisan legislation going on. Yet I see some sort of disconnect of true collaboration. Like, I'm not kidding, where we take to the streets and say, no more.
Yeah.
In numbers, like 1 million people showing up. No more. Why is it so hard? Why is it so slow, all of this, if we know all of this, to really create change? And with that being said, we are creating change. It's very slow. But why is it so hard?
Yeah, it's a great question, Lynn. And I'll start with saying it just, one of the challenges of living in a democracy and in the government structure that we have is that change is tough. Change takes time. That being said, the simple reason why change is so difficult in this space just comes down to power and money. There is no way to sugarcoat that. Big tech companies have massive amounts of money, massive amounts of influence. And today in Washington, D.C., after this last election cycle, they have significant influence in Congress, in the White House. And that's not meant to be partisan. That's not meant to be ideological. That is, on its face of it, everybody will acknowledge, even in Washington, D.C., that big tech today has far more influence and power than they've had in probably the last 10 years. And in the last 10 years, they had a lot of power and influence. Now it's become magnified. Now it's exponentially more, right? And so I think we need to understand that at the core of all of this, it is about money, right? It is about profit, is that it is about big tech, whether it's Apple, whether it's Google, whether it's Facebook and Meta and Snapchat and Instagram or YouTube or Discord, any of those platforms, it all comes down to money. And this is profit, right? Every one of these companies knows that their products harm kids. They know it. They've got the studies internally that have been leaked. They've had whistleblowers come forward. Every member of Congress knows this. And yet they don't change. And partly why, Lynn, because I don't know that every parent in America knows this harm. I know that you and I and the groups that are involved in this, who've been out advocating, we know that parents who've lost kids to the social media are aware of it. But I can guarantee you that the vast majority of the American public does not yet fully grasp just how dangerous these platforms are to the mental health and physical health of kids. And so I truly believe that part of what we're doing is this amplifying these harms so that we can make more parents aware of it. Because while you have an army of warriors doing your work, we need an army of parents across this country lifting up their voices, both those parents who've been directly impacted by the negative consequences of social media, but by other parents who, thank God, haven't come close to those harms, being enlisted in this battle and in this war and saying, we are joining with you. We're going to raise our voice. All parents, everybody in this country should be concerned for the future of our kids' lives on social media.
Yeah. And I want to also point out, so that this is nobody's fault. Kids have been born, I like to say, in this digital bubble, maybe 30 and under, I'll say. And also parents, caregivers, family members are overwhelmed. They're trying to, pay the rent, mortgage. They're trying to make car payments, put food on the table. It's nobody's fault. We want to just help and raise this awareness and give you, again, the tools. Here is something very hopeful, though, Eric, as you know. There are so many voices. The warriors, we work with the DEA. So we work with plenty of families, with the fentanyl and the illicit, all this illicit stuff, the drugs going on. And those parents are coming out in numbers, whether it's Voices of Fentanyl, Lost Voices of Fentanyl, I'm sorry, the Black Poster Project. And then we also have, MAMA. We have Mothers Against Media Addiction.
Yep.
We do have, it's increasing in the last few years, this awareness. We're getting more warriors to come on board. So I think this is a very positive message that more people are waking up. And also across America, not just our cities, where things tend to start in the cities kind of thing and then spread out. So I'm very hopeful we can just keep educating and talking about this. And by virtue of, look, we're using the internet for good today, spreading the word, right? We're thousands of miles apart, you and me, but we're spreading the good word. With that being said, let us get into this Music to My Ears campaign going on. It is so good to keep the kids digitally, safe. We can't, it's warning labels. Start talking about, now, how did you get involved with that? And I don't even know how I met you. I just met you online somewhere, or I got an email or something. And I think we're all starting to be connected. The group's doing the good work, across America. So fill us in what's going on with kids.
Yeah. So kids is Keep It Digitally Safe. It's a campaign contest at its core. It's an opportunity for young people and others to submit their ideas for what warning labels on social media platforms might look like, what they might sound like. This all came about really about a year ago when the former Surgeon General came out and said, we need to have warning labels on social media in the same way that we have on warning labels on other products that potentially cause harm. So we got involved in that in large part because we've been working with a lot of groups on the Kids Online Safety Act and on a number of other age-based appropriate design code bills and things like that. And so our original plan was to do something not long after the Surgeon General had come out with that notice. But like many groups and individuals who've been involved in the COSA campaign, we felt somewhat optimistic that that bill was going to get passed. So we wanted to keep our time and attention focused on that. Well, when that failed, we decided let's bring out this campaign. And really the goal here is to invite a conversation and to raise awareness about the harms of social media. Do I think a warning label on social media is the end all be all solution? Absolutely not. Do I think that this campaign can serve as a tool to leverage a conversation among parents and kids and others about the harms that are out there? 100%. And that's what we're really trying to do here. What we're trying to do is to say, look, we don't want to censor the internet. We're not talking about taking social media away from kids. The genie's out of the bottle. But you know what? We certainly can make it safe. We can put some guardrails there. And one of the first things that we can do is to make sure that parents and young people are fully aware that when they come to a social media platform, there have been identified harms that they need to be aware of. And so this campaign contest started out with a handful of groups, and yours was one of the early adopters of it. And we're now at nearly 40 partners on 5 continents. So this is really, no matter where in the world you go, Lynn, is social media is having a negative impact on kids, whether they're in Africa or Australia or South America or New York or Minnesota. And so we look at this campaign as a way to amplify those harms and to start a conversation. You made a comment, which I think is really important. You said, we're not blaming anybody, right? There's nobody to blame for this, right? But here's something that we need to understand, and parents particularly need to understand. When I was a kid growing up, if I went to a party and I happened to drink and I had too much to drink, there was always the understanding drilled into me by my parents that you call us and we will come and pick you up, and we're not going to judge you. We're going to be there to help you. We've got to have that same mentality when it comes to kids' interaction with social media. We need to teach parents that when your kid comes to you and says that they have been confronted by harm on a social media platform, the immediate response needs to be, I'm the adult, I'm the parent, I'm the guardian, I need to help you. It can't be blaming that kid because they happen to go on social media. They may have done something that kids do, right? Kids are kids, right? So kids experiment, kids do things, right? Kids are trusting. And so we need to make sure that parents are equipped to be able to have conversations with their kids, to protect them, to support them. We need to encourage kids to talk to their parents when they have found themselves in trouble on social media. And that's another part of our campaign, which is let's have these conversations. Let's make sure people are aware of the harms that are out there. And let's make sure that we're sounding that alarm here across the United States and anywhere in the world where there are kids and there is social media.
Yeah. And the other thing, Eric, and I talk a lot about it, is, parents will say to me, oh, I'm so embarrassed to have the conversation. What are we embarrassed about anymore? I'm like, the kids are seeing everything online, whether it be, I started in the music business after college. I mean, whether it's music, entertainment, programming, it has become very sexual in nature over the last few decades. That's the way. So kids, I say, they're seeing things and hearing things anyway. So be the leader here.
Yeah.
And I guess it really starts, and it sounds very simple, with conversation, like age appropriate from the time a child can walk and talk, whatever that may be, because we just live in this different kind of world today. It's not going away. I don't want to give up the internet. Nobody's trying to take the internet away. We're
Right.
trying to strengthen and empower and inspire people, to put a few guardrails. But you know what, Eric, I have to bring up, people, they do it. I know it's a little bit different. Everybody was on, using the seatbelts. We use this analogy a lot. Everybody was on the bicycle helmets like crazy here in New York, doing, you have to wear, you have to wear. But I always say, if you buy that phone, most parents buy the phone, the devices, right? The Chromebooks, the gaming, whatever it is, whatever the devices are. So you really have a responsibility then to put some guardrails on, to have the conversations, to know you're paying for it. It's not your child's or teen's device. I try to say partnership, like family devices, that type of thing. Do you agree with that? Because that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of points that you raised, and I'm going to go back to the first one, which is this idea of talking about it. talking about those harms and that idea that you're uncomfortable having that conversation. You know, the work that we do in suicide prevention, Lynn, at the core of it is talking about it, right? You need to talk about suicide. You need to say the word out loud, right? You need to ask people, are you thinking about harming yourself? Have you thought about suicide? And you can't hide it. You can't sweep it under the rug. That's been the stigma that's attached to it for far too long. Same thing with social media. You got to have those conversations. You got to talk about it, right? Parents do have a responsibility. If you put a electronic device in the hands of a child, as a parent, you have a responsibility just like anything else. Like you would teach them to be careful in a car, you would teach them to be careful in handling a firearm, you would teach them to be careful about any kind of product, right? A tablet, a smartphone, a computer, a game, an Xbox, all of those things you have a responsibility as a parent or a trusted adult to educate that child that you've given that to about the harms. We need to also understand there's something different, though, is that big tech wants us to believe that it's 100% the parent's responsibility, that they have no ownership in the product that they put in that phone, the product that they put on that tablet. And the reality is that social media or big tech companies took that power away from parents a long time ago in their ability to monitor and police the activity of their kids. Think about this, is that there's a big movement in this country and elsewhere in the world to take phones out of the classroom, take smartphones out of the classroom, right? Well, there's a couple of reasons why that's important. One is that it takes away that distraction. But the other part of that is that, remember, on every phone, there's the opportunity to put an app on there. And there's opportunity to surf the internet, surf the web. Well, if you send your kid to school, you can't monitor your child 24/7, right? Now take that phone out of their hands. Guess what most schools teach with their kids today? They teach with a Chromebook or a tablet, right? Kids are smart. They know how to defeat measures to block your access to get online to other things. My point being is that parents have an initial and ongoing obligation to continue to talk to their kids about the harms of social media. But at the end of the day, parents can't be everywhere 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They need a partner in this fight. And that partner, the big tech company, refuses to be the partner. They refuse to partner and make sure that they are supporting efforts, particularly with parents, to protect their kids. That's why Congress and policy makers need to step in and pass laws to regulate and put guardrails in social media. It's why we need warning labels on social media, because the partners that all of us as parents ought to have isn't playing fair and won't step up to the table and be the responsible partner we need to help protect our kids.
Yeah, I mean, you pointed out, big tech accountability, therefore lacking, as proven by the way they behave, right? What do you think? Do you have any thoughts on KOSA, Kids Online Safety Act? Because I actually thought, like in the last 2 weeks or something, it would go to a final vote or something, and I'm not hearing anything about it lately.
Yeah, I will say I'm not particularly sanguine about the Kids Online Safety Act. I think there are other bills out there right now, the Stop the Scroll Act, which is probably going to get reintroduced, and that's kind of a federal version of a warning label bill. There's the Take It Down Act, which would
Yes.
require, so piecemeal, some of those things are coming together. I'm concerned that the politics have changed dramatically since the last Congress for the Kids Online Safety Act. So I'm hesitant to tell you that I'm particularly optimistic about it. I will tell you that I am at my core an optimist. So my hope is that somewhere, somehow along the line, we find ourselves back into this conversation about that bill and other measures to protect kids online.
Yeah, I mean, I want to go back to the campaign just for a minute. I think it's so exciting. Again, I'll have that all, Eric, in the body of the video, because kids can submit anything, right? It can be painting, it can be artwork, it can
It could
be
be artwork. It could be an audio, right? If you want to do a video, you don't have to be an artist, right? You just got a little bit of understanding of what would you, as a young person, want to tell other young people about the harms that are on social media, right? So it can be anything. It could be, you're right, it could be a painting, it could be a video, it could be audio. And here's the other piece of it that's important is that submissions can come in all the way through the end of September. When it's all said and done, we're going to pick 3 winners. There's going to be an educational scholarship of $5,000, $3,000, and $2,000. So put in your idea. If you're a mom or dad, you know what? Tell your kid to sit down and put something together and submit it. You might win a scholarship. And one of the things you will definitely do is help spread the message about how all of us can help protect kids online.
Yeah, Eric, I'd like to put this in, introduce it to some of the schools we work with, just the campaign. So if that's okay with you, I don't see
Absolutely.
why it wouldn't be, and get them on board. Because again, it's this kind of thing. I want to just go back on, we have to have the mindset, at least I do. We do at the Warriors, one positive action a day, helping one person, one child, one campaign, one legislate. That's the way we have to think, because the rest is so overwhelming. And you've pointed so many different issues out, but it all comes down to us, and it comes down to the parents, the family members, all getting on board and understanding nobody's fault. And again, there's a lot of good. Eric, finish us up with some final words. I'm very excited about this campaign because we do a lot with the Warriors with art therapy, music therapy, like therapy. Kids draw, that's therapy. So for me, this is something that more kids will want to be involved with. It's therapeutic kind of thing. So I'm very happy to see all of this. Finish us up, though, maybe if you're talking to some parents, adults, what you want them to target in on right now.
Yeah, first of all, Lynn, thanks for having me on to have the opportunity to have this conversation. Yeah, what I would tell parents is talk to your kids, right? Talk to them, see what they're watching, see what they're doing online, talk to them, understand what they're doing, and most of all, send them a very clear, unequivocal message. No matter what happens online, no matter what experience you have, come talk to us. It doesn't, you're not going to be in trouble. We're here to help you. Nobody's going to embarrass you. There's nothing you as a young person will ever do online that will ever embarrass us, make us ashamed, or that we will look to make you feel guilty. You've got to reduce that stigma so you can have that conversation with your kid. As difficult as you may think that conversation will be, guarantee you, and guarantee others, it is far less difficult than the conversation you're going to have if your child suffers terribly at the hands of social media, if they find themselves suicidal, if they find themselves bullied. Take the time to have the conversation now to avoid the tragedy later.
Yeah, Eric, I feel so hopeful. I use that word a lot because I want people to also understand it is dark and ugly, all of this. That's just the truth. However, let's take the flip side of that and let's create, what you're doing is wonderful as far as kids and awareness and talking about it. That's where it all starts. And I have to say, Eric, let's finish up with any thoughts on AI, because if we don't start now, artificial intelligence, right? It is here, artificial intelligence, right? It's not coming, it's here.
Yeah.
We're going to just wake up someday and it's going to be, I don't know, it's just going to be everything. That I'm convinced. This is my opinion. So I think this is really the time to get a handle on this before full scale with all of that. Any thoughts on AI you can finish up with?
Yeah, I'll start by saying, I'm hopeful about a lot of the things that we're going to be able to do to help protect kids. You made the comment about more and more voices. So I kind of end this by saying I have a great deal of hope that we will ultimately get to the place we have to be. AI is one of those things. Again, it's a reminder that all of us as parents and non-parents alike, anybody who's concerned about the future of kids generally, you got to educate yourself. You got to make the effort to learn about these things, and you got to be prepared to go out and advocate. At the end of the day, Lynn, you and I can do only so much. What we need other people in this fight, and it's not something that has to involve your time 100% of the time. But the reality is, I think every one of us has a voice. Every one of us has the ability to make an impact. And I am extremely hopeful that as we continue on this journey and this path, we will get to that place where we need to be, that we can protect everybody's kids, no matter where you live in the world, and still give them access to a safe online experience.
It's going to happen. I couldn't say it better. You know what, Eric? You really are such a warrior. I have to really thank you for your dedication and the mission of working on all of this to keep kids safe and to educate, the adults in the room, whether it's the parents, the grandparents, the older siblings, everybody's got to get on board with all of this. I will have all of, save.org, also keep it digitally safe.org. Everything will be in the body of the video. And I want to say to you, please let us speak more frequently so we can, I feel like things change, apps are popping up every day, and who can keep up with all of this? Things are changing, things are growing, and I'm so excited that so many different organizations are signing on. We will be promoting this campaign as well, getting the word out. And we thank you so much for being this warrior. Promise me we will speak again soon.
You have my word on it. Thank you, Lynn, for all you do.
Thanks, Eric.
Have a good day.